Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Telling Tales, and welcome to the Cincinnati Chronicles, our high-concept anthology series of tabletop role-playing actual plays centered around the world of darkness, specifically the incarnation of it from the 90s onwards, where we're skipping around different systems, telling different tales, all taking place on one day in 1995 in the city of Cincinnati. We have barely started with this anthology series, and as such, we are still on the first story arc, the one taking place in the system of Vampire the Masquerade. We have a ready and willing coterie of vampires who are making their way through this initial storyline. Yeah, let's do more of that. But first, promo, all the boring stuff. Let's get it out of the way. Down below, there's a bunch of links. There's links to Twitch and to YouTube. You're watching on one of those sites. Please join us on the other one as well. If you haven't joined us on Twitch, then you can catch these shows live there. If you haven't joined us on YouTube, then there are now hundreds of videos available for you of all our previous series and one-shots, lots of lovely, lovely content for you to digest like a good little consumer. Yeah, why not do that? There's links to our social media, to our Discord, and to our Patreon. Those things all do what you'd expect them to do. Follow us on social media, join us on Discord, and support us on Patreon should you wish. They're all there for you. We run 3 weekly series of actual plays here on Twitch. Each of them starts at 8 o'clock p.m. GMT every week. And there's Mondays, which is Shadows of Esterin, which is a kind of low gothic fantasy thing that the Monday crew, led by Johnny, does. There's Wednesdays, which is Symbaroum, which is a dark fantasy, which I realize sounds similar to low gothic fantasy, but it's a very important distinction, as I'm sure you'll understand. But yeah, Symbaroum is a dark fantasy thing. It's kind of our flagship show. It's been running for a long time. And that's on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock p.m. GMT. And tonight, obviously, is Cincinnati Chronicles, World of Darkness. So yeah, that's our weekly schedule. He says, trying to tame a horribly errant bit of mustache hair. How horrible. We also run monthly one-shots on the first Saturday of every month. Those have been going pretty good all year, and there's a bunch of varied systems we've been playing through that you can catch on our YouTube. We recently held a poll to see which one of them people wanted a sequel to for the end of the year for our December one-shot, and Alien won, the relatively-ish new Alien system from Free League. So we'll be running a sequel to that. The original one-shot was called A Place of Burning and is available on our YouTube, and this will be a direct sequel, same crew, same characters, the ones they ended with anyway, maybe not the ones they started with. And yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And that should be on Sunday, the 5th of December, thoroughly breaking what I just said about how our one-shots are on Saturdays. But hey, we like to keep you on your feet. We like to surprise you. And with that in mind, here's something shocking. It's Pierre, our first player of the evening. Even he is shocked by himself. That's how shocking this is. Pierre is playing Fen Koval, a Nosferatu former actor, himbo turned hideous monster of the night. Yeah, how are you doing, Pierre? And how did last week kick off?
I'm doing well, Matt. I love how you always introduce me as a himbo in combination,
in or out of character. Yeah,
but you know, like. Let's get on to the meat and potatoes of.
To be fair, I did also use the word former, which
okay. We hear the words we want to hear. So yeah, we met up with the prince, who doesn't really make himself very known particularly often. Prince Ludlow, he lies low, and he was very appreciative of the work that we had done covering up the that massacre that happened.
That massacre at the gas station.
Yeah. So appreciative, in fact, that he was happy to offer us an opportunity which we were perfectly free to say no to, so long as we, didn't mind unspecified threat. So we took him up on the opportunity, and the opportunity was, of course, to track down the individual who we had witnessed on security cameras tearing a lot of people apart. And yeah, I'm not feeling great about that. I am worried that he will
Concern.
be
Yeah, general
too
concern.
much for us.
Absolutely. So yes, a rogue kindred breaking the tradition of Masquerade that hides the world of vampires from the unaware mortals, and turns out, an offer from the prince not easily refused, and you set off alongside Sheriff Diamond, the kind of lawgiver, law enactor of the city, in order to start in your investigations. So let's bring on our second player, Holly. Holly plays Natalia, the Toreador graffiti artist and rebellious soul, I think it's safe to say, who, yeah. And you can tell us all about what happened next.
Sure, yeah. So after we were finished with the prince, we went with Sheriff Diamond to a kind of 50s style diner in order to meet up with unspecified person at the time. So we got there, and the guy behind the counter, I think, was called Marshall. But a few of our party decided to follow Sheriff Diamond's lead and order stuff at the diner. Most ordering coffee. However, Fen decided to get some pie, which
I'm
is
glad we're covering the
interesting-
pie.
Oh yeah, we have to cover the pie, which is an interesting decision given that vampires don't really eat or drink anything other than blood. So Fen decided that the best thing to do would be to scoop handfuls of chocolate pie into their pockets, poorly, I might add. Yeah, so excellent start there.
Tasty. What can I say?
Oh yeah. So then once that was done with, we eventually learned that we were waiting for a detective by the name of Vincent.
Yep.
So when they arrived, we were told that they would be handling the tracing aspect of trying to find said masquerade breaker. And they were going to try and keep in contact with us. And in order to facilitate that, we were given a picture of the guy that we saw doing the murders, and some pages, because it's the 90s. So, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So once we covered that, Sheriff Diamond and Detective Vincent left, at which point we figured out who we were going to go to try and sort this out.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that each of you have kind of some people you know within the city who might be able to pass on some information, and it was generally decided to go seek them out and see what could be found out.
Yeah.
And the first port of call, the person we'll have detailing it, is our third player, Inga. Inga plays Joan, the I suppose a bit more structured and loyal to the Camarilla Tremere, who's only recently come to Cincinnati from Europe. Inga, where did you guys go first? What happened?
Well, Joan was pretty keen to stop by the Chantry to pick up her ghoul, Eamon, for this inevitably active night we're probably kind of embarking off into. He's sort of her muscle, I guess. And while we're there, we also chatted to Gildersleeve, who is not Tremere, but also hangs out at the Chantry. Seems somewhat off with the fairies, or up head in the stars, and has certainly been talking about some strange sort of prophecies or things that might be going on. Not really taking any of it too seriously, but there's some stuff about stars.
Odd alignments happening, apparently. Yeah,
something strange going on, which we're definitely taking very, very seriously, and not just dismissing as some mad old person. But yeah, and so with Eamon in tow, we kind of got on to the next stop.
Absolutely. So yeah, Eamon being a very valuable guy to have around, what with his gun and all. And yep, Gildersleeve, friendly, connected, not an awful lot of information in this specific circumstance. But someone who did have some information is our next port of call, which our final player John will talk about. John plays Cole, Brujar, rabble rouser, I suppose, kind of union and rent protest guy, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a good description of,
I don't know.
Socially aware worker for good.
Yeah, rabble rouser. It sounds a bit.
That's more where you ended up, really, isn't it?
It is.
So why don't you tell us how the session went on and how it ended last week, John?
Well, we started by going to talk to a friend of Cole's at a bar called the Dirty Deeds, which is oft frequented by kindred, particularly of a certain leaning, and is run by a friend of Cole's called Honesty. Basically, to ask whether this random kindred had just shown their face at any point. Honesty informed us that he had several times. He'd been seen talking to drug dealers and undercover cops until the night before, where he'd come in, put $1,000 on the bar, and asked to find the leader of the Anarchs, called Mox. So, Honesty had sent him on his way, and unfortunately, that means the next port of call is to go talk to Mox, which is where we went, right in the middle of a rant, in the middle of, is it Hyde Park?
No, Hyde Park. Oh no, Hyde Park is much fancier area, which was near Prince Ludlow's Haven. This is Eden Park in Walnut Hills.
That's it.
Yeah, specifically you were sent to it was termed the Wolf statue, but it's like a statue of the wolf nursing Romulus and Remus, isn't it? Which
I got, I got confused with our V5 London, campaign.
Where you did go to Hyde Park a couple of times.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And which people should watch, but that's not immediately relevant. So yeah, we went to join in the rant. There was a bit of discussion about whether Joan should come with us because she doesn't exactly fit in with the usual Anarch demographic. But we decided to bring her along and leave her ghoul behind.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the rant happened.
And Mox turned up. And everyone looked very excited to see him.
Apart from the guy he injured badly.
Apart from the guy whose leg he broke backwards.
Actually, I'm not sure how excited that person looked.
Maybe he was stoked. We'll never know because I'm not going to talk about him again. So, you're at this rant, lots of annex around, motorbikes running, lit by their headlights and revving, and Mox has arrived to a slow, stomping chant of his name, battering some poor unfortunate individual on the way, and now he's standing in the middle of this kind of mostly hushed crowd with a boombox blasting thrash metal turned down and the motorbikes kind of just revving, quietly kind of idling among this. And then Mox starts to talk. He talks in a low murmur that you have to lean forwards to catch before his voice begins to occasionally erupt into a shouting, provocative howl. He speaks of how those who dwell in ivory towers cannot understand the thirst of those outside, and of how anyone who has spent their life beat down on the streets knows how to take what they need, whether that be money, blood, or power. He talks for, all in all, not that long for a kind of essentially a kindred political speech. But it's clear to you all that it is a rant from the heart. It's somewhat vague and without direction. The crowd around you seems to lap it up, devolving into further Mox chants and revving of engines as he draws to a close. He hasn't really, to most of your mind, said anything too specific. He simply seems to have wound the crowd, whipped them up into a kind of fervor as they're kind of howling and stamping their feet, not in unison anymore, chanting his name occasionally. You're being kind of jostled occasionally from one side or another, especially Cole less so than the other three of you. But really, there doesn't seem to be much of a function to the short speech he just gave. Certainly not compared to the speech before him that was being booed down. That was a bit more of a kind of a genuine political speech with the individual talking about kind of the need for solidarity and things like that. This doesn't seem like a particularly politically minded crowd. Mox then goes on. He shouts out to various notable annex in the crowd, a mix of acknowledgement, praise, and challenge as he's kind of turning around and singling people out, occasionally like just saying their name, saying something they've done recently, something they've done in the past, and the crowd cheers or jeers each of them as presumably to purr their personal feelings on that individual. Eventually, Mox turns kind of round and sees your group maybe a row behind the front and points at Cole directly and says, "Cole, he speaks to the blue blood so the rest of us don't have to," and kind of bashes his fist to his chest in kind of recognition of this. It does feel slightly barbed, but still a kind of acknowledgement that the work you do for Cincinnati's Brujar. And you get like a small cheer and a couple of kind of voices, kind of the usual ones you'd expect, yelling, turncoats and stuff like that, before Mox turns and gestures at another notable Anak. He finishes this by throwing his arms kind of wide out for quiet, and the crowd somewhat stills. And he says, "And there's another with us tonight, a brother from the north returning home for a short time." He gestures out at a man in the crowd, a man who cannot... he doesn't blend in, let's say. He's a white guy with a shambolic shock of shoulder-length blonde hair and a weathered and slightly torn vivid green suit. Mox doesn't introduce him, but a few annex nearby start crying out, "Juggler! Juggler!" It's not a chant that takes off in any way, that in the same way that kind of the Mox chants took off and sort of dies down before it reaches a fever pitch, but clearly a great deal of the crowd know who this individual is as well. After this, Mox says kind of a few more words, mostly muttered to the crowd near him that you can't quite pick out, and then just walks back into the mass. You lose sight of him.
I hope you appreciate Cole. I also cheered when he called your name.
Thanks, Fan.
No worries. I've got your back.
How are Joan and Natalia looking? Joan specifically.
Joan's not looking super happy. Definitely looking out of place and a bit uncomfortable. Like, I think not being able to bring Eamon in definitely shook her a little bit. Yeah, definitely fish out of water right here. I think probably looking a little bit nervously to you, almost for what do we do here kind of look.
Yeah, I think Natalia is just waiting for this to like come to a finish. She's probably heard pretty much all of this before. I expect that this is a fairly standard stump speech. So yeah, she's just kind of slightly leaning, just trying not to get jostled too much, waiting for Mox to finish.
So do we seek Mox out, and like, do you reckon we can just go in and follow him into that tent?
Cole.
Did he go into the tent or did he go into the
He
crowd?
didn't go into the tent, at
Oh,
least
sorry.
partly because the tent doesn't exist. I'm
I
not
was
sure
going
where
to
the
say, I
tent's
don't
come
remember
from.
a tent.
I thought he went into a tent, but he did
Magic
not.
tent has appeared. Cole, can you make a roll for me, please? Can you make a perception plus alertness roll for me? Classic roll. Standard
Yes.
difficulty.
That is, 4 successes.
Okay. Kind of across the group of now revving up bikes again, where you can see one Anak kind of like slamming a hand on the boombox, and the music tinnily blares out again, as everything seems to be devolving to more of a party than a kind of rally. You see a slightly shifty looking punk kid. She's kind of glancing across the slightly more open area with the bikes in it, kind of towards you. And as you sort of catch her eye, she just goes.
I give a slight nod back.
An old acquaintance of yours?
You've seen her around, but not consistently.
I'm trying to figure out whether the 4 of us could kind of subtly make our way over.
Yeah, no one's paying any particular attention to you, and there's quite a few people there. Basically most of the annex of Cincinnati and their ghouls, and
Fair. Yeah, in that case, stick close to me. Try and avoid the pit.
I think I'll...
The pit being the large mass of just... You know what I mean.
Yeah. Some people will have started kind of like dancing along to the music, and there's a general kind of... there's general kind of friendly violence is being done among kind of the mass of annex. If you follow the punk girl through the crowd, she walks a short distance away from where the rant is still going, and sort of indicates a nearby sort of a little patch of trees in the middle of Eden Park that have kind of a clearing in them. You can see there seems to be kind of someone standing in there pacing slightly. As soon as she draws your attention to that, she kind of looks around and runs off in the opposite direction.
I'll take the hint and head towards the clearing of trees.
Okay, being followed by the other 3, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. You walk into the clearing, which is fairly dark. The moon is out, though, so you can see a little bit. And there's still a little bit of light coming from kind of the park path and where the rant is. But standing in this clearing is the Anak called Juggler.
Evening.
Just him alone?
Mm-hmm. He turns around and kind of looks over the 4 of you, and he does look a little bit unhappy that there are 4 people here. He kind of glares slightly at Fen, Natalia, and Joan before sort of shrugging and walking forwards and saying, "Mr. Cole, you know who I am?"
Juggler from Chicago?
That's right.
I've heard of
Well, from Cincinnati, technically. But yeah, I'm known in Chicago. You're known too.
you.
Less
I'm
than
honoured.
me. So listen, there's a message I've been told to give you.
From who?
You heard of Blackjack? Let's have a roll to see if you have heard of Blackjack. Let's have a intelligence plus... What do we reckon? They are a kindred in Chicago. So what do we think? Maybe etiquette or politics or even occult?
Politics?
Sure.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if there are not, particularly, they might count as politics.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Go ahead with intelligence and politics. I'm going to say this is difficulty They've got a reputation, but not like a huge one. I'm saying it's difficulty 8.
Okay. Ooh, 2 successes.
Yeah, you've heard of Blackjack.
I've heard of them.
You think he's like an old union guy, like an old kind of like commie type, you know, up in Chicago. You've heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Right. Well, he sent me with a message from the more civic-minded brothers and sisters up in Chicago. Maybe working together could bring results that swimming individually against the tide of princes and primogen can't. He wanted me to invite you. Chicago, a month's time.
Thank you. Working
Not
together
really my
has
business.
always been my philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Blackjack talks about all the time as well.
And you disagree?
I've just got different priorities.
I always wonder about the priorities of someone who doesn't believe in collaborative action.
Look, down here, you're dealing with that, your little absentee prince and a tame primogen. Up in Chicago, we've got Lodin. He's not the same.
Sounds like more of a reason to work together.
Sounds like more reason to be strong in defiance.
Those aren't mutually exclusive.
Sure. He kind of half turns to leave the clearing and then stops. And I would like everyone, please, to make a wits plus alertness roll at difficulty 7.
One
I got
success.
2 successes.
Mm-hmm.
On 2 dice.
3
Five.
successes.
5 successes. for me.
Well, I'll say that Cole and Fen, you notice that he's kind of halted by seeing another figure kind of standing on the outskirts of this little clearing. Joan and Natalia, you see very clearly that that figure is Mox, who is standing there with kind of one thumb hooked in his belt loops, sort of rocked back on his heels slightly, shoulders well spread, head tilted to one side. He's using his other hand to kind of like run through his short cropped beard and just kind of watching this situation pan out. As he sees everyone notice him, he swaggers into the clearing again, a very kind of distinctive gait to him, sort of rolling his shoulders in a or I guess like a John Wayne kind of like old cowboy strut. And he turns to Juggler and says, "You wouldn't be trying to come here and steal all the annex of Cincinnati away, would you?" There's like a little pause. And by the way, when I'm doing these narrations, just so people know, feel free to like interrupt with actions or speech or whatever. I don't want it to feel like a text adventure. Juggler, after a pause, from what I mean, it definitely feels like a joke, but a joke with a little bit of a sharp edge to it. Juggler kind of sketches a little bow and says, "Of course not. This is your territory, Mox. Everyone knows that. This plan of Blackjack's is for the common good of Annex in Ohio and Illinois alike. We're just simply talent sharing." He gives him a little smile, and it's quite a winning smile as well. You can see why he has like this kind of aura of charisma around him. Winks at you, Cole, and then wanders off back towards the rant. Like Mox turns as he goes and like just watches him. And watch it, unless you guys interrupt, will watch him all the way walking back to the rent.
I'll let him watch him go and then say, I'm touched that you're so concerned for me to stay, Mox.
He kind of turns round and walks a bit closer to your group in general and says, now, see, you might think that that's my concern, but my concern here and now, Cole, is why are you bringing warlocks to my rent?
Thought you might like to see who I'm hanging around with.
Oh, well, see, that's very caring and considerate of you, and I really, really appreciate your candor in that. But did you ever think, just for 1 second, that it might cause trouble?
She's no trouble. She's here with me.
She's no trouble. She's no trouble. He says she's no trouble.
Is she causing trouble? Look at her. Is she causing trouble?
I don't think she could cause trouble if she tried.
Well, then there's nothing to worry about, is there?
I guess there's not. Why are you here, Cole? You don't like coming down here. Why are you here?
I don't mind coming down here. I've got a favour.
Right. What's this favour?
Someone spent a lot of money to come and talk to you yesterday, and then they got themselves in a lot of trouble, and I'm trying not to get blamed for it. Ring any bells?
Sure, I saw a guy. I met a guy last night. Did Honesty send him?
You'd have to ask her about that.
She send you?
No one sent me.
So you're after this guy. Why are you after this guy? What trouble did he get in?
Tore a few people to pieces. Didn't clean up after himself.
Friends?
No.
So why you give a shit?
Because I stumbled across them. And if I don't find him, they get pinned on me.
The goodness
Not
of your
officially.
heart. The goodness of your heart. Who pulled you into this?
Blue Bloods.
So you're working with them now? Working for them?
No, I'm working for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Prince was nice enough to give me a choice.
Prince.
Yeah, Prince is involved.
Right. So what you want from me?
Anything you know about the guy.
Anything I know.
Anything you know and you're willing to give.
Well, let's just be cautious here, shall we? You tell me what this guy looked like.
I'll do better than that. I'll show him the picture.
He kind of takes it off you. Pass it back almost immediately. He barely looked at it.
Well,
you're coming here asking for a favor. I'm going to ask you to cash in right away, Cole. I'll talk to you. I'll tell you everything, every single detail I know about this guy. I've just got to have one thing from one of you, and I don't care what it is.
What's your price, Mox?
He stands back a bit, kind of spreads his arms out wide and says, hit me.
Don't do this, Mox.
One of you take a shot.
I think I sort of puff up a bit, and I'm like, I look across at Cole.
Come on. Any one of you.
He's asking for it, Cole. I go to hit him.
Okay. As you kind of, because there's a little way between you, and as you're kind of like stepping towards him, his eyes kind of like lock a bit on you. And most of the way through this conversation, he hasn't really been looking at all you guys. He's kind of been like looking around, almost kind of avoiding your gaze a little bit. And as you come towards him, he kind of locks his eyes on you for the first time, and kind of like a little smirk appears at the corner of his mouth, and he says, "Oh yeah, that's it, freak. Yeah, sewer rat, you want to take your shot? You're gonna take your shot? Yeah, good boy. Come on."
I'm sort of approaching him, and I'm getting weirder and weirder, and I'm like, and then I'm like, okay.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Give me a dexterity plus brawl roll, please. Is it typically strength plus brawl in this edition?
I've got it written down.
Cool.
That was either
So it's
5
damage.
or 6 dice, depending.
Close unarmed is dexterity and brawl.
Dexterity and brawl, cool. Yeah, take that shot, and I think a punch is just a 6 difficulty. So
Okay. I got a 1, so that's a good start, and 1 total success. So
okay,
I did have 2 successes, and the 1 cancelled one of them.
sure, but I mean, you did hit him, so that's something.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm gonna just roll. I mean, it's barely worth rolling his soak, but I will roll his soak. Do you know what the soak difficulty is in V20, John? Did they do the sensible thing and make it more difficult than the damage? Oh God, you've got to roll damage as well in this one. Never mind. There we go. So before I go ahead with any of that, Fen, can you roll? It'll just be your strength,
Okay.
like your base strength, unless you want to, because you have potence, right?
I do have 1 point of potence, yes.
Okay. I believe you have the. Am I right in saying you have the option to add your potence to this by spending a blood? Is that if you wanted to?
I do, but I also don't think. Yeah, I don't think I'm trying
that you want to. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really understand why he's asking me to punch him.
Sure.
But he's asked, so.
Yeah.
So I'm just rolling my strength then.
Yeah.
Okay, I rolled 10, 7, 5, 5. So if it's at difficulty 6,
it is.
Then it's 2 successes.
2 successes. Okay, and he's going to roll his soak, which will be, well, for a start, what this is bashing damage, which is cut in half when applied to Kindred at all. So he's rolling to try and prevent 1 damage. And his soak, when we'll find out it's like stamina usually, plus fortitude, which I'm not sure any of you have fortitude as a discipline. But for what it's worth, so your fist, were you aiming for his face?
Yeah, it seems like a good place to punch him.
Yeah. So you step in. He doesn't kind of move to stop you or anything. He's still got his arms out. You swing. Tell me how you throw that punch. I think that'd be an interesting image.
So yeah, like as I'm walking towards him, and he starts muttering the sort of weirder and weirder, like, come on. I like at the last moment, I sort of. It's not like I throw, like I'm kind of like off put, and I'm like, ugh, and it's like. Yeah, I like don't put my full weight into the thing, obviously.
Sure, and you just kind of like just do a little rabbit punch across his sort of face. I don't think, given the lack of damage there, unlike how much he resisted that, I don't think his head even moves. I think you basically just swing alongside of his head and just like barely knock his head at all to one side. He kind of like makes just this kind of noise, and immediately like, and you can tell me how you're going to try and react to this.
Okay.
But what he is doing off this is for a start, he's using celerity, which is kind of a supernatural speed, and he is going to whip his hand back into like a proper kind of like haymaker, which he's going to just sling around and plant directly in your face. Do you think you would even have a chance to respond to this?
Probably not.
And if so, like maybe you don't even want to. Maybe you want him to take his shot like you took yours. You can try, and if you think you can dodge this, I'm happy for you to try.
Can I butt in? Because like as soon as I saw Fen going for this, I knew that there was going to be a scuffle occurring. is there any way that I could have like gone in after Fen, but not try to like join the fight? I'm trying to trip Fen up after he's made contact in a way that reduces any impact of
What, so you're trying to like
potential
yank
Kind of
punishes.
pull him out the way.
Yeah, just try and just like kick his legs out so that he falls backwards.
This does sound less like helping Fen and more like double teaming Fen
Yeah,
with Mox.
Exactly, but it might help
on.
reduce the damage on Fen's
I can tell
face.
you right now, it definitely won't reduce the damage. It would just add another attack to Fen, just by how it
might
would work.
position you well. Like Mox might be like, yeah, you're also attacking this jerk.
Yeah, I'm partially going for try and like get Fen out of the fight quicker, as in make it seem unfair, at which point Mox might stop.
Sure.
But also just kind of like trying to stop Fen from doing another hit.
Sure. I mean, at this point, at this point, Mox hasn't even swung for him.
Oh yeah, I know, but he's definitely just from the look of him, I know that he's going to make contact and do damage.
I mean, I think to like interrupt him in some way or to like act before he strikes or something like that, you're definitely going to have to make a significant roll for that because A, he's using celerity, and B, he's only just acting and he's a little bit away from you. Have you got celerity?
Yeah, I've got 1 point.
Okay. If you want to spend the blood to activate celerity and then make a dexterity and celerity roll against Mox's dexterity and celerity, I'm happy for you to try and interrupt in some fashion.
Sure, why not? So celerity, how much blood am I spending again?
I really should have got a load of D10s out before. I'm so used to like GMing diceless on these streams because
I
of
can roll some D10s for you if you like.
See,
no, it's okay.
You always play diceless systems, but you still end up rolling the dice to do terrible things to us.
No, I don't.
Dice to do entertaining and interesting things to us. There's a difference, John.
Sure.
So, yeah, and we'll just do like a standard, like difficulty. So it's difficulty 6. How many successes did you get, Holly?
So what am I rolling? Just dex?
Sorry, dexterity plus celerity is what you're rolling.
Plus celerity. Okay.
By the way, Matt,
mm-hmm.
The answer to your question is I'm not fast enough to respond. I don't think.
Sure.
Okay. So I got, was it difficulty 6?
Yeah.
3 successes.
Okay. That matches his. But he's the aggressor in this circumstance. So I'm going to say you get there literally just as, like, Fen is like reeling back from the blow. I'd say so. I don't think you're there in time to do it, but you are there. Like, you have arrived. It's just, yeah. Mox was a bit too quick. So in that case, what I'm going to do is roll for Mox's attack on Fen.
My beautiful face, not my beautiful
face. Which, yes, is a hit, which we would expect. And then we're going to use his strength and potence to calculate how much.
I should have used potence on him, shouldn't I? Already regretting.
So that's cut in half from the result. Fen, can you roll stamina for me, please? And did you say, John, that the stamina is also at difficulty? The soak roll is also at difficulty 6.
Yeah, it's just a standard.
Just a standard roll.
I got 1 success and 1, so that's 0 success.
Correct. It is. Yeah. In that case, Fen, can you take 3 bashing damage, please? So I think. I'm not sure if you know how to do this because we haven't done damage or anything like that yet. If you look at the bottom right-hand side of your, you know what? I can actually do a lovely share thing here because not only do I have a character sheet up as an example, I literally have Fen's character sheet up as an example to help me. So if you look at the bottom right-hand side of the first page of your character sheet where it says health there, yeah.
Yep.
He says, like, madly scrolling around.
There's
Yeah, bashing damage is indicated with the slash.
Gotcha.
And then lethal would be an X, and aggravated would be a star. And that's like the order of badness, essentially. Bashing damage is not that bad at all. It's kind of not too much of a problem, generally speaking.
Cool.
But as you can see, that means you are injured.
Yep.
And the -1 is a -1 dice to all rolls until you heal.
Gotcha.
Up from that level. And that's basically how damage works. So there we go.
Cool.
I think the result of that, and it's obviously, up to you to determine. Do you think a blow like that would send you sprawling or reeling, or I don't want to turn this into an actual combat unless you want to, because Mox isn't going to turn it into an actual fight. But
I think my instinct is I take a step back to balance myself because I've been knocked backwards, and then I step into Nat, who's right behind me, and and has rapidly run directly here. So I either trip backwards or because presumably Nat's still moving at Mach 1. So,
yeah, sure. So in the end, Nat did trip you. Absolutely. So is it fair to say Fenn's like sprawling backwards on the grass now, kind of like what hit me? It's definitely one of the most, I don't know how much Fenn's been punched, but it was a very, very hard punch. Like just
the
for
doubles always pulled their punches.
Sure, exactly. That's what you're more used to. Just for reference, bashing damage gets halved when it gets applied to Kindred. So if Mox had just punched a mortal like that, the mortal would be on the health level called crippled. So it was a very powerful punch. Let's put it that way. Natalia, you kind of flicker into view next to where Fen is kind of sprawled over on the ground. You kind of felt him trip over you as he stumbled backwards. Mox immediately sort of turns and rounds on you and steps forward right into your field. Even you can feel the tip of his head brushing against yours, and you just hear him mutter, "He took a shot, I took a shot. What are you gonna do, degenerate? You want a shot? You want a shot?"
At which point I'm just going to put my hand towards his shoulder, not actually touching him. And just say, whoa, big fella, he's had enough. Let's just, he got his shot in, you got your shot in.
Sure. Can you give me, just before you do that, I'm going to want you to take a self-control roll. Because being immediately and kind of physically threatened by another kindred is definitely something that would set a vampire off, right? However, I think it's not too much of a challenge. You probably feel like imminent violence isn't going to break out unless you respond, that you want to fight. Also, this isn't a situation you probably want to find yourself in too much. So I'm only going to put it at difficulty 5, I think. But if you roll your self-control, and all you need is 1 success.
Which I get easily.
Absolutely. You say what you wanted to say, maybe, and it's up to you. Maybe there's a slight tightness to your voice as you're how well did you control yourself? How many successes did you get? Sorry.
3.
Oh, fine. You can do what you want. There's no, you're in control. You are, you're still Natalia Wolf. You're not the beast.
I'm just trying to meet him deadpan because he's coming in pretty aggressive. So I'm
absolutely. He kind of moves back a bit from you and just kind of almost rolls his head back, runs his hand through his beard again and says, Sure. We all had our shots. Get him up.
Yeah, so I'll just give Fen a hand behind me.
Thanks for having me.
I will also give Fen, grab him by the elbow and drag him to his feet.
I am awake.
All right, so this guy, you want to know about the guy? You want to know about this guy who Honesty sent to me last night?
The guy, yeah.
The guy. So he finds me. I was busy with something else. But he talks real polite, he talks real smart. So I just give him, a real small, just the smallest of beatdowns, and then I let him talk. He wants to know if he can get protection, if the Annex can take him in. He offers me money, he offers me favors, but he's real vague about how he's going to come through and deliver on those. He's all confused, all antsy. He's on the run from someone, something. I figure this is a guy who can't help me if I help him. At the best, and at the worst, he's some kind of cami spy. So I tell him to fuck off. He gives some little howl, pity for himself. And then he runs away, muttering something. That's it. That's all you wanted? Bedtime story?
Did you catch what he was muttering?
No. But clearly, he was feeling pretty sorry for himself. Felt all unfortunate.
And do you happen to know who he was asking for protection from?
Didn't ask. Didn't care. Doesn't matter who it was. I could have offered it to him. But what he was offering was of no interest to me.
Any idea where he came from? Did he sound like a Cincy person?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Blue blood? Saying
Maybe.
he had money. All right.
Are we done?
I look back at the group.
It depends. Can you remember anything else?
I don't hold things back, Toreador. Your little sewer rat took his shot. I took my shot. And then I told you what happened. Don't make me repeat myself. And don't ever doubt me.
I would never. Thank you very much for the information.
All right.
I sort of have wiped the blood from my on my from my nose and my hand, and I'm just like, no hard feelings. I offer it to him.
He kind of looks down at your hand and then looks away a bit and goes, "Learn to take a punch, kid." And turns and walks off back towards the rant.
You okay, Finn?
That went better than I expected. Ugh.
Yeah.
Thanks for the backup. I was a little bit worried for a second there. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a real nice guy.
Much obliged. He has his own code of conduct, but seems consistent at least.
He's honest. That's more than can be said for a lot of people.
So we can trust what he has to say?
Yeah.
Not very curious though, is he?
He doesn't have to be.
So who do we reckon was chasing our man? Still no idea.
Just so we have an idea of timeline, and also because it might matter to one of you. I imagine some of you are wearing watches. Probably.
Yeah.
It's the 90s. You won't be on your phone. It is probably now around 1:45.
Oh, shit.
And if you are to make it to the usual place by 2 o'clock, You better get going because it's the other side of Cincinnati city center.
I check my ridiculously overpriced, incredibly expensive watch.
Rolex.
And I like look at it and I'm like, oh shit, we've got a place we need to be.
Wipe the blood and mud off it.
Oh guys, can you let's get back to the car.
I think we're done here.
Is anyone else does anyone else want anything from the rant before they make their way away? No.
I think
maybe just trying to like absorb the faces and, you know, commit to memory this experience.
Yeah, can I suggest that we don't go back past the statue and we instead skirt
you can make your way out to the edge of the
path?
You can make your way out to the edge of Eden Park without going past the rant again, and you absolutely do so, unless you want to do something, Cole. Sorry, John, you wanted to talk.
I was just going to, as we're walking away again, sidling round the group, I'm going to sidle up to Joan and ask, so how was your first rant?
Educational, somewhat. As she starts tucking back up in her shirt again and tidying herself up as we're leaving.
It's a rougher side of the movement. That's not all there is to it.
I don't think Mox particularly exuded sophistication and political savvy.
No, but Mox isn't the only one.
If he's your leader, doesn't that suggest something?
Mox isn't my leader.
Theirs, then.
Yeah, sure.
Who was that juggler fellow?
Some guy from Chicago.
He's different to Mox.
As far as you're like, obviously, it might not be the response you want to give, but essentially, what Mox is to Cincinnati, Juggler is to Chicago, as far as you're aware.
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Cincinnati's a different city to Chicago, but you know, working class movements are the same all over.
As you are having this conversation, you kind of leave the sort of some wrought iron gates on one side of Eden Park, and as you do so, the Cadillac, which was kind of like down the street, it looks like basically Eamon's been kind of just slowly driving around Eden Park over and over again, and it's by chance a little way down the street from where you are now, and he like speeds up and just pulls in on the pavement right next to you.
Right.
Okay. Can I just like tap on the window and just like ask for the keys?
He like winds the window down as you do so, passes you the keys, and immediately like unbelts and clambers over to get into the back.
I'll hand him back the firearm as well.
I'll take a shotgun.
Receives that. Cool. So we got Fen and Joan and Eamon in the back. Fen, when you get in, he kind of, like Eamon kind of looks over at you and kind of takes in your slightly damaged features. Are you going to have healed any of them by this point? By the way, it is 1 blood per level of damage healed.
I think I will have, in the adrenaline of the moment, kind of forgotten, and then as Eamon looks over at me, I'll be like, why is he looking? Oh, and then I'll like touch my face and be like, ow, and then I'll
sure.
Yeah. So
you're going to heal it all up, or just like if you healed it by 2, you'd still be damaged, but wouldn't be taking any dice penalties if you wanted to hold on to your blood a bit. I don't know.
I'll heal it by 2.
Okay, so that's 2 blood to kind of do that. As you do so, kind of Eamon's glancing over at you as he's kind of tucking his gun back away into his jacket, and he says, "Damn, someone get their licks in."
It was mutual. You should have seen the other guy.
Right. He looks a bit skeptical.
No one likes my jokes.
So Natalia's driving, but as far as I'm aware, Natalia has no idea where to go because Fen hasn't said where the usual place is.
Yeah, all I would know from what Fen was saying was that it's the other side of Cincinnati. So I'm
Okay.
just driving.
I think I'll actually like take a bit of joy in like just directing, as like
Not
just
saying where it
a
is,
left
just
over
direct.
here, a right
Sure.
over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In that case, the car proceeds its way across Cincinnati city center and kind of veers a bit to the north. And as you go to the north, again, as before, you know, the number of emergency vehicles increases as the traffic increases in the direction of that manufacturing plant explosion. And now it's quite clear as you get to the north side of Chicago. Like you can see a faint glow whenever there's a long road and a low skyline. You can see a slight glow on the horizon, and against the moon is a pillar of smoke winding upwards. You make your way, like I say, over the north side of Chicago city center, which is probably jarring for all the Americans out there. I believe I can say downtown instead of the city center. Otherwise, that sounds a bit weirdly formal, probably. Downtown Cincinnati, you head to the north side, and you are, Fen says, presumably to pull up outside the destination.
Yep.
Yep.
Just in there, that big glowing building.
Fen is pointing towards a very smallish but well-lit building, outside of which are many, many lit neon signs. The most prominent of which says, "Welcome to the American Sign Museum."
Yep.
Always wanted to go here.
Yeah, it's not as great as it looks from the outside. But you might get to meet one of my sire, or maybe not. I don't even know. I check the pager.
All your pages have gone off.
Check them.
It just says, "Call me." There is a payphone nearby, should you wish to take your chances with that, since none of you have, a car phone.
I think Joan would get out and head towards the payphone and let Ben do whatever he's doing.
What's the time? Is it really close to the?
It's a couple of minutes past 2, but whatever.
Sure. Yeah, I'll head in, and unless you think I should wait.
You clean yourself up first, and I can't remember what Americans call it, but the glove compartment.
Glove compartment. Dash? I don't know.
Whatever. Holster.
Cole keeps a small sachet of baby wipes in there, exactly for wiping blood off things so it doesn't get on the car.
Sure. Sounds appropriate. So Joan's going to make the call to Detective Vincent. Fen's tidying himself up a bit. Natalia and Cole, is your intention to kind of follow Fen in, or once he goes in while Joan's on the phone, or what's the general plan here?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go with Fen because Joan's got Eamon to make sure that no one bothers.
Yeah,
her,
sure.
so.
Oh, Cole, can you give me the picture?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
So,
okay.
I'll stick with Joan. We'll catch you up probably.
Okay. So Fen, you get out with Natalia, head into the American Sign Museum. All the lights are on. The door is just open, even though there's a "We are closed" sign hanging on the door, as you'd expect. It's a nice sign, and you walk on in to a riotous, glaring, clashing glow of different colored neon hung up everywhere. Odd, weird signs, unique signs, standard signs, all of them from different things, from restaurants, from truck stops, from bars and other museums and art galleries, all of them kind of clashing and jarring with each other into almost this kind of visual noise that's really, really quite unpleasant. What's also unpleasant is the omnipresent low buzz coming from them all. Like the whole place seems to be not vibrating, but kind of just resonating with this mechanically frequency, even though that's a weird way to describe just the buzzing of a neon light. Yeah, it's an unsettling place.
Yeah.
But before we come back to inside the American Sign Museum, Joan, you've gone over to the payphone, I assume, and just dialed Detective Vincent's number?
Yep.
Yep. Her voice answers and just says, "Right, I have some information."
Yes.
The man on the recording drove away in what looked like an expensive silver Lexus. He left shortly after the events that we saw. The car headed east. That's not much to go on. This is perhaps more important, though. He has matched a description, not in the general criminal database, but in other lists I have access to. He matches the description of a dangerous kindred, wanted for some time by other nearby Camarilla authorities. Sheriff Diamond has advised you shouldn't hesitate and are indeed encouraged to use lethal force when encountering him.
Who is he?
This database isn't the kind that has names on it.
Who else is after him?
People in other cities. People who ain't going to be here tonight.
Why are they after him?
Dangerous. Killed other kindred, it says here. A known threat.
Has he been picked up anywhere else? Has the car been picked up anywhere else?
No. Just look out for that silver Lexus. And I think, what do I know? But I think you'll get into some very good graces if you take this guy out.
Noted.
Click.
Thank you, Detective.
Any luck?
Yeah, he's no name. He headed east from the gas station. Apparently he's wanted by other Camarilla. He's on some sort of top secret database. No name. He's killed other kindred. We are encouraged to use lethal force.
I don't like the sound of any of that.
No.
Don't like that there's a database.
Without names, without real. We're obviously not being told the whole story. He drove off in a silver Lexus. We should keep our eyes open for something there. But other than driving out east from the gas station, that's all we have as far as tracking goes. Although I suppose we know he's in a car. He's not on foot.
Sounds like he definitely had some money behind him.
Sounds like it.
You are muted.
Sorry, are you two heading inside after the others?
Yeah, I think.
Sure.
I think of that.
You walking in. Is Eamon staying outside or coming with you?
I'll bring him in with me this time.
Sure. As you, the three of you walk in, Fen, Natalia, how do they find you? You know, how have you been waiting? Because the Frog Boys have not shown their faces is a strong word yet.
Yeah, I've basically been looking for like what is the dankest corner, and I've been unfortunately like every corner is just so brightly neon lit that nowhere is safe from these glaring lights that remind me of what happened to me. I'm finding this increasingly uncomfortable, and I think I'm just sort of pacing like way more than is actually effective to look for the frog boys.
Sure. Because there's not a lot of room in here. There's so many like signs and like even like central displays full of them and stuff that you're basically just marching around in very tight little circles.
And I'm sort of like muttering to myself and being like, well, maybe they're not coming. Maybe we should just go. Maybe everything's maybe we should just continue on with our investigation without whatever key piece of information they have. What do you think, Nat? You think that's crazy? You think
Yeah, I think you need to chill out a bit.
Yeah, you're probably right, Nat. You're probably right.
They'll be on their way soon. In the meantime, what do you think of this one? And I'm just going to point to like one of the signs and then just start like talking about an idea that I have for a future like art piece.
I really don't see what you're getting out of that cowboy taking off his hat. How did you take post-structural deconstruction?
And on that note, the other three walk in, I think.
I'm guessing none of the signs have triggered Nat's Toreador entrancement.
No, it is maybe if they were laid out in a bit more of a competent and non-assaulting fashion, then perhaps. This isn't any dig at the actual American Sign Museum, by the way. I'm sure it's lovely in there, but in the world of darkness, it's you feel somewhat assaulted by going in. Okay. As you walk in and like Fen is kind of like sort of going off on a random slightly panicked rant. Could everyone roll, please? Let's roll wits plus awareness. Awareness, not alertness. Difficulty is 6, and just let me know how many successes you got.
Oh wow, I got 2 1s and 2 successes, so that's a total of 0.
Yeah.
3
2 for John, 3. Yeah. So all the others of you, as Fen is going about his rant, start to pick up over the general hum of all these signs. At first, it just sounds like maybe another buzzing hum that's wavering in and out a bit, and then slowly it becomes more and more apparent that there is one, maybe more, maybe 2, maybe more than 2 voices, or rather little sounds kind of going. They sound like they're somewhere in this room, but you can't quite locate them by kind of ear alone.
Yeah, so could I use Auspex to try it now that I know what I'm listening out for?
Mm-hmm.
Can I try and like pinpoint a location?
Well, let me tell you this. You can what you can do is try and use your Auspex to see through obfuscate, which is almost certainly what is being done.
Mm-hmm.
What you need to do is roll. You detect the subject's presence if your Auspex rating is higher than your obfuscate and succeeding a roll. Oh, what is your Auspex?
Just 1.
No. You can try and kind of look round normally and use your Auspex to kind of do that, but yeah, your Auspex is definitely not higher than the Frog Boy's obfuscates, unfortunately.
Joan would just softly Eamon to get his attention to.
Fen, have you noticed your companions changing their behavior, or are you just lost in your own world of?
I think at this point I have. I sort of briefly stop and go, is there something? Oh God, it's one of their
Mr. Koval.
Yeah, hello.
Can we have your autograph?
Yeah, sure.
Over in whatever is the furthest corner from where you're all standing in the room, the one place not covered by wherever you've been looking and whatever you've been doing, 3 figures melt out of the nothingness and appear. The frog boys are somewhat unique looking individuals. It might not be too hard to refer to them as gurgling monstrosities. They are admittedly somewhat more toad-like than frog-like in appearance, but they have oversized eyes, grayish green, kind of bumpy skin, wide rubbery mouths that gulp and smack as they talk. They're dressed near identically in outdated tuxedos, and as they melt into existence, they preen their faded clothes and occasionally paw at the bloated warts on their heads with paddle-like hands. They are constantly tittering and making little comments between themselves, and that will carry on through this scene. I'm sure you can imagine that. It is very, very difficult to discern between the 3 of them in any meaningful way at all, and I'm not even going to try to attempt to say which one is talking.
They finish each other's sandwiches. Hello. How long have you been? Okay, it's just been the whole time, hasn't it?
We're just being attentive to your needs.
Much appreciated. Look, I have information that maybe you'd be interested in, and maybe in exchange, just like a normal exchange, you could give me information that I'm interested in.
It's terribly difficult to take you seriously with normal business with you looking like that, Mr. Koval. You think that was a laugh?
Yeah.
I
suppose
place
it
my
is.
hand on Fenn's shoulder.
Look, sort of straight, like I sort of rise a little bit at that, and I get the photo and I sort of show it to them. Look, please. Have you seen this man? Do you know anything about him?
One of them kind of reaches out and takes the photo softly between kind of 2 paddle-like hands and draws them towards themselves. As they do so, another one of the frog boys kind of peers around and says, "Aren't you going to introduce us to your friends?"
Yes. This is Cole. This is Nat. And this is Joan.
Joan, how was your flight?
Fine.
They kind of turn the photo over and start kind of poring over it, quite attentively, making odd popping and cooing noises and kind of stroking the edges of it slightly.
I turn to Joan and I sort of mouth, "I'm sorry they do this."
What do you want to know of this one?
Recent movements. That would be most appreciated. And if you don't know that, who's chasing them? What they're freaked out about?
We can give some knowledge, but we want things. We want to know what you know about him, and we want future knowledge, future things known. A promise, yes, a promise from each of you. Yes.
That hardly seems fair. There are 3 of you and 4 of us.
Oh, well, that is a point, I suppose. But let us counter it by saying we don't care.
Oh God. Right.
We sympathise with your position. Things aren't going well, Mr. Cole. That client of yours you're writing for the letter for, the foreclosure from their bank, will arrive tomorrow.
We'll find a way around it.
Okay. Fine. I can give you at least my promise. I can
A promise from each. A promise from all four that we can ask questions next time we meet, and you will answer yes. Otherwise, nothing. And what you know of this man now.
I turn to the rest of the group and I sort of like resignedly shrug.
Sure, you can ask questions next time we meet.
And you give answers, truth, knowledge, information.
I promise
Kind of questions.
information.
There'll only be one question each.
Okay, fine.
All right.
First, Koval, tell us what of this man. The one holding the photo kind of thrashes the screenshot a bit roughly around as a kind of gesture of insistence.
We know he went to seek protection from the Anarchs. We believe that they said no. Seems pretty reasonable. But obviously we can't know what we weren't there to see. To be honest, I don't really did the investigators say anything on the phone?
We know
don't know.
very little about this man. Why do you think we're here?
Why are you here? Why are you after him? What has he done? He's done something, hasn't he?
We're here because we want your answer to the question, what do you know about this man?
Oh, it's a trade, though. It's a trade. Why are you after him?
This man caused a scene in a gas station.
Oh, the police are there now. Yes, they are. Murder, bloody murder. That's what we hear.
Very bloody.
We know things. We stick by our word. This man, he's been here in the city for a long time in the service of others, powerful others. He wasn't one of us then. No. He was ghoul thing then. And now he's one of us. He was taken like we did with little Koval a few nights ago. Now he's one of us. And when we've seen him, frantic, disturbed, a different man. Now that he's not a man, he spoke to the one at the bar, the Bruchar, then to the Anak, but otherwise laying low. Made phone calls to an address in Oakley, an address we know. Yes, we do. That is what we know of him.
And what would it take to get that address.
Oh, technically, that's not information about the man.
Information about the man would include his current location.
That isn't where he is. It's where he's been making calls to. It's an address. We know the address. We know who owns it.
Is it possible that it's a location he might be? That would definitely be related to him.
Semantics. We like semantics, but only when we're using them. One question back, and maybe you can choose to know another thing. Phone call. What was the phone call? Outside.
Information that the man headed east from the gas station in a silver Lexus.
What else?
Little meaningful.
We might be the judge of that.
I don't know if this counts as knowledge. Information, perhaps. He seems to be wanted by others, but you and I already knew that. We don't know who. We don't know why. We don't know what for.
Oh, poor hunted little fledgling. Do you want to know the address? Or do you want to know who owns it?
From what you were saying, I think I have an idea anyway. I prefer the address.
And the rest of you? She gave the knowledge. The frog boy speaking is kind of waving a paddle towards Joan.
As Nat says, we'll take the address.
Oh, speaking as one, how conscientious. All right. He gives you an address. I'm not going to bother relating it to you. It is a road in Oakley, which is quite an upmarket area, kind of like a what nowadays we'd call a gentrified area of Cincinnati, with lots of kind of, coffee bars and the like are only starting to come in the 90s, but maybe it's got a couple of those front running for the rest of the inevitable invasion.
Do they also tell us who is at that address, or just the address?
No, they said, do you want to know who owns it, or do you want to know where it is?
Okay.
So, does the man know the owner of that address?
He's been making calls there. It would be a bit rude if he didn't.
Indeed.
I've got a question about the man. Who's his dormitor? Whose blood did he drink? That's a question about the man.
That is a question. We don't know. It's rude.
Don't know.
Rude to ask questions we don't know.
Do you know the clan?
No.
You said he was like Fen. Not necessarily Nosferatu then.
No, not one of us. He was just turned, embraced, made kindred Cainite, one of the fallen, one of the chosen. A few nights ago. Don't know where, don't know when, don't know who.
Okay.
If he's only been embraced so recently, how are there so many people already after him?
Someone. So this lady, the lady detective who talked to you, she told you others? It doesn't seem enough time, does it? It doesn't. No, it doesn't. It doesn't seem enough time. Oh, surely no one could be telling lies.
Why do you think I promised information rather than truth?
They think they know. They think they know. They'll learn. They'll learn. The frog boys start to melt away in front of your eyes.
Like, as they melt away, it looks like a weight is lifted from my shoulders a little bit. And I sort of stride out of the museum.
I'll follow.
I give one glance back to where they disappeared. A bit of a dirty look, I'll be honest, and follow.
Eamon is kind of the last one to leave behind you, kind of closing the door to quite quietly. And as he turns, you can see like he's got like his hand in like the jacket on his pistol, and he kind of turns to all of you, but kind of especially to Joan, and he's a little pale in the face, and he says, "Was that normal?"
Yep.
Christ.
Normal for them, you know.
How do they seemingly know so much, Fen?
I assume that they repeat what they do to us, to absolutely everyone. And in doing so, gather a massive network of knowledge, which they then sell to other kindred. That and phone tapping, I would guess.
Yeah, I don't know if it was lost in their burbling ranting, but you definitely didn't mention that you were talking to a lady detective.
Yeah, they just know way too much. But like, if there's a way of gathering information, they don't like to trade.
Joan is absolutely right, though, in that a ghoul who spent like years in the city and has only just recently in the last few nights been embraced does not at all tally up with what Detective Vincent just told you.
Yeah.
All I can think is that maybe whoever has embraced him is, and if he's fled, they're after him for some reason. But even then, how important can he be?
Well, it depends. If he'd been a ghoul for a while, might have been privy to some information.
Ghouls can be important if they're trusted, but the pieces certainly don't seem to be adding up. Is all.
Yeah.
But for many different groups of Camarilla to be on some sort, you missed the earlier debrief, but there's apparently some sort of database that the detective has that doesn't even have names, so top secret. I couldn't tell. Either she didn't know or wouldn't tell me who's after him, other than other of the Camarilla.
Allegedly.
Why? Other than other than he's supposedly killed other kindred. But that alone.
Killed other kindred.
I mean, was this in other cities?
Did they?
Unclear.
Because, I mean, if they've only been turned in the last few nights, they're going to have a hard job of killed kindred.
I believe Vincent's exact phrasing were other nearby Camarilla authorities, which I think you would definitely take to mean other nearby Camarilla cities.
Yeah. I mean,
to be honest. Sorry, Fen, you go.
I'm sorry if this sounds crazy, but I do, to some extent, trust the Frog Boy's information a little bit more than the detective. And I've got to say that what about this? If he was a ghoul and he was privy to some information or something, was loyal to someone, if he was turned, would he continue to be loyal to his original master if he wasn't turned by the original?
It depends, especially if he wasn't turned willingly, then that's definitely a way to upset some relationships.
If it suddenly sent him off running, he must have not known about it, been surprised by it, something about the circumstances.
The fact, it could even be a lie that he's killed other kindred, because that would make us much more likely to kill him on sight.
I mean, it was if there was heavily suggesting that we do so, that's basically an order. Plus, I've never known a pig to actually tell the truth. So,
right.
Question is, if he was asking for protection, was he asking protection from whoever embraced him? Or was the embrace what he thought would be protection from what he was running from before that?
Did we, Matt, did we get the timelines? He spoke to Mox more recently than he sounds like he was embraced.
He spoke to Mox
last night, and the Frog Boy said the last few nights, which I
Yeah.
guess you could take as like, I don't know, the last 3 or 4 nights or something like that. One other thing I would mention, feel free and go ahead with this conversation, because for a start, you can do it while driving. I would note to you that, again, our little ticking clock of the evening, you are now approaching 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock.
I was about to ask if Elysium was coming up. So
Elysium is indeed coming up at Cincinnati Art Museum. So if you want to, and it was suggested that you check in with Prince Ludlow and give him a halftime report. If you want to do that, the time is approaching for you to make your way there.
Yeah, we should definitely go. We should definitely go.
Okay, but the question is, Nat, what do we tell him?
We tell him that we've got some promising leads.
Okay.
Who do we think is involved here, though? He's been pretty AWOL for a lot of goings on in the city.
Also, he came into a lot of money very recently. Like, if he was taking a cab a couple of months ago and then has just got a silver Lexus and also was just able to drop $1,000.
He's got a patron of some kind, yeah.
Exactly, which is what I think this address might be.
Presumably this address is near where we're supposed to be meeting the prince, if it's all in the upscale part of town.
As in the part of is Oakley near Hyde Park, is what you're saying. Oakley is very near Hyde Park. It's just north of Hyde Park. So yeah, it's very close to where you met Ludlow. Yeah.
Do we maybe at least swing by? It seems like this Oakley person is possibly his patron.
Oh, Oakley is a neighborhood. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, but like the person who lives in the.
Sorry. Yeah, I get you.
I don't know if we have time.
If you want to be on time to definitely catch Ludlow at Elysium,
I think
maybe you could go there first, or maybe not. I don't want to kind of you don't know what Ludlow's doing, so you could you can make the choice. You don't need to go to Elysium at all if you don't want to.
I think
it's a good idea.
If we're playing nice with the prince, we should go to Elysium. And I think if he wants details, we tell him what his people have told us. We don't implicate the anarchs. And we don't let on that we think the detective is lying.
Yeah, we just say that through our own channels, we've come up with a potential address that we know he's been contacting, and we know that he's been asking for protection.
Sure.
We don't give any more detail than that.
Okay, let's go in.
That's more than we've been told by the channels Ludlow knows.
Exactly. It's more information, so that works.
Mm. All right. If it is somebody who is, so as we're in the car, as we're driving, I guess we can carry on chatting. But if there's somebody powerful who he thinks he's able to get some sort of protection or patronage from, they might even be at the Elysium tonight.
I mean, any patron probably would be, especially if they're wealthy.
Does that make it sensible to drop that knowledge when they could be present, or it might help identify somebody, or could it
don't
be?
have to do it in the crowd. We can just inform either Ludlow or Diamond that that's where we're at if they ask. If they don't ask for specifics, then we can just tell them that we're making progress.
Eamon, how much do ghouls talk to each other? Do you have like a break room or something?
I mean, depends on the ghouls. I don't really spend much time talking to Ventru ghouls, or Brujar ghouls, or Malkavian ones, or he looks a bit uncomfortable at the notion and says, Nosferatu ghouls.
And I'm guessing you don't recognize the guy in the picture.
I think I would have mentioned that by now, Mr. Cole.
Yeah, alright. Never mind. Just thought might be worth finding someone lower down on the pecking order who might know him. But I guess
it's probably around now that you are pulling up near the Cincinnati Art Museum. It's a very large building with kind of a classical columned face to it, quite similar to the building that you met Ludlow in. It has kind of a lot of lights on inside and a lot of door security at the moment, and you can see kind of a few figures walking up like a sort of slightly there's a sort of low white ramp leading up to it with a certain amount of like greenery around it. It looks as if it's just open for a regular event at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah. It in.
Yeah.
You maybe check the pen is sufficiently cleaned up first.
Sure, yeah. Well, you've used some like hand wipes and stuff, right, to clean yourself off a bit.
Yeah, as clean as I get.
As clean as you get.
But sure. Also, I almost feel more comfortable in the sign museum.
Sure.
Before we go in, can I grab my bag of paint cans?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go for it. So, you all of you. Where is it? Is Eamon coming with you, or is he? Ghouls are generally allowed to Elysium if their if their domiters wish them to come.
Yeah, I'll have them come with me then.
Okay. You stride out of the Cadillac, which can be parked kind of there's a little car park to the side. There's already a number of vehicles there. Many of them, many of them as expensive as your Cadillac, Fen, but few of them as ostentatious. You walk up, and the kind of the guards on the door kind of look around at you, sort of carefully. And as soon as I'm assuming, Fen, you're have you got like a hood up, or are you just presumably not just walking along because it is a public street?
Yeah, I'll be with my hood up as best I can using unseen presence, just to go unnoticed as best I can.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. If you are completely going unnoticed, then that's fine. As you walk up then to the doors, the security there, who are all kind of large, beefy individuals in very nicely tailored suits, kind of step forward and kind of look around all of you. How many would you say many of you attend Elysium regularly?
I'm probably forced to.
Sure. I could imagine Joan perhaps going as well on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
she's not been around long enough to probably be a regular, but would certainly like to be.
Sure. And of course, yeah, actually, I was thinking Cole, maybe not, but you do because you have a working relationship with the kind of higher clans, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. In that case, they kind of look around and at least one of them recognizes you, and they all just step aside and wave you in, and one of them says, "Have a good night."
I pass on through. I am more of a fish out of water with
Sure.
the Elysiums.
Yeah. So the interior of the museum is painted in a soft grey with open arches leading to many side rooms and exhibits. The main attraction, where kind of like a carpet has been laid down to lead to and where all the lights are on leading to, seems to be in a rather large room containing a series of ironworked geometric frames detailed with delicate patterns, some of them hung in the center of metallic rings and others placed around on the floor. They range in size from about a fist to a small car and are lit with a fuzzy purple light that reflects odd shapes onto the plain grey walls. A quiet musical piece plays through corner speakers, some kind of ambient droning piece with elements of world music that weave in and out. Kindred are wandering around these and a couple of other exhibits as well, attended by their own ghouls and those provided by the Primogen, who are kind of wearing, sort of attendant, servant kind of costumes. On entering, every guest, including you, is offered a glass of fresh vitae in a similar but lower quality fashion to that offered by Ludlow. So just, a small glass of blood if you wish to take it as you walk into this main exhibit.
I gladly take it. And if it looks like anyone is refusing, I'll offer to take theirs as well.
Sure.
Jones had hers, sorry. Presumably there were no silver Lexuses outside when we came in.
No, yeah, I'm happy for you to have taken a look for that. There were no silver Lexuses outside. Anyone who drinks the blood can go ahead and top up by 1 blood point. There are kindred all around, and you recognize a lot of them. Many of the individuals you might know are here. One thing that you don't notice, you can't see any of the Primogen here, currently at least. And also, for the moment, you do not see Ludlow or Diamond.
Right. What's the kind of clan makeup, as far as we can see? Are there many Nosferatu?
No, it's fairly typical for a Cincinnati Elysium, which is attended by a lot of Ventru, a lot of Toreador, and a smattering of the other clans, going with the ratio going lower the further you get towards the stereotypically Annex side of things. So there are very few Bruja here. Maybe a scattering of Gangrel, and then you get some Nosferatu, fair few Malkavian, fair few Tremere, and then a lot of Ventrue and Toreador.
Can I see 18 anywhere around?
You can see 18. They are kind of standing with the glass of blood, with kind of arms folded, staring at one of these kind of ironwork geometric shapes, seemingly quite focused on it.
Can I just walk up next to them and just drop my paint bag next to their feet, and just start looking as well, and just go, it's a bit boring just looking at the stuff in front of them.
18, I think it's quite likely that the others of you have encountered 18 before. They're a notorious Toreador street artist and street performer. They're actually really, really small and quite slight, with a shaven head and a very kind of, say ambiguous heritage, sort of thing. They can't be pinned down at all to being of any kind of particular ethnicity or parentage. And as they're staring at this kind of ironworked structure, they don't really acknowledge you for a good 20 or 30 seconds or so, and then they blink and kind of come back into themselves and turn and say, "I like it."
Well, there's no speaking for taste. Do you know if... Well, we've got some business with Ludlow, much as I would rather not. Has he been seen at all yet?
You said the art was dull.
Yeah.
He's over there in that private room talking to the Primogen.
How long have they been in there?
An hour, maybe.
Hopefully they'll finish soon then. Anything else interesting going on?
Well, clearly the exhibit isn't enough for you. You still hanging out with them?
Yeah. They're an interesting crowd to run with.
Aren't they a distraction?
Isn't everything?
Only if you make it, my dear. The other three of you, while Natalia is talking to 18, are any of you going to be seeking out any particular individual or mingling or anything like that?
I'm going to go and try and sweet talk the Ventru that has a majority share in the bank that is trying to foreclose on my client.
Sure, absolutely.
I don't need a roleplay scene.
That's just what you're off doing. Sure. How about Fen and Joan?
I am feeling like a fish out of water, because the main Nosferatu who I think is vaguely friendly to me is Mother Mary, who is presumably in with... Well, we've been...
Presumably should be, yeah.
Actually, I don't know where Mother Mary is, but...
Nope, but she's one of the Primogen, so yeah.
Yeah, she's not here. I think I like... I'd sort of hang on, like, reasonably close to Nat and see, and like try and listen in on what they're talking about, because I'm kind of interested in the artistic side of the thing.
Well, 18 certainly isn't moderating their voice to like kind of not be heard. So unless you are, Natalia, then I don't think Fen will have any trouble following the conversation. So yeah. Joan, how about you?
I think probably would have stayed a bit close to Nat at first, but if it's gonna just start chatting about art, maybe just sort of peel away at some point and again just try and schmooze a bit with some of the people I maybe recognize or maybe haven't yet met but want to introduce myself to.
Sure, some general all-purpose mingling.
Yeah,
absolutely.
While keeping an eye on, look out for Ludlow at any point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say the room that was being pointed to, are there like guards outside?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can I just like wrap things up with 18 and then just go and speak to the guards outside?
Sure. You know what though? As you're approaching the guards, the door opens.
Lovely. Okay.
And out walks first. The first people out are I think it's safe to say probably all of you. I'm not going to go through each member of the Primogen, but like there's a couple of people who come out who most of you will be familiar with. The first two to walk out of that door are the Toreador Primogen, Evelyn Scripps, and the Ventru Primogen, a man called Stokely. They're arm in arm and sharing some kind of private jest between them. Following them are the others, including Mother Mary, the Nosferatu Primogen, Fuchs, the Tremere one, who I believe you talked to on the phone in the very first session, comes out as well as all, the others come out. And following them, sharing what seems to be just kind of like a little bit of a pleasantry with Mother Mary, is Prince Ludlow. Could all of you roll wits plus alertness, please? And John, it's going to be a 7 for all of you, but John, it's going to be a 4 for you. Very nice. Natalia, you either have excellent perception-based rolls or just excellent perception.
Yeah, I've got high wits.
Oh, everyone's doing good there. How do you do, Pierre? No. What one? In that case, let's say Fen, you kind of like, there seems to be not enough of the Primogen there, but maybe you don't know the ones who aren't Nosferatu enough to figure out. All the rest of you, the Brujar Primogen, a fairly unpopular fellow called Loveland, is not there, or at least has not left that room. As the group walks out, do any of you want to kind of engage them? They're basically like splitting up and walking, and you can see like quite a few kindred sort of flocking to where they come out, subtly trying to look like they're not flocking. Engaging them in conversation and talking to them. And the air of the room seems to take on a slightly more anxious tone, and it maybe occurs to you all that the Primogen perhaps have been talking about the events that have happened in the city today and tonight, and maybe these kindred are seeking reassurances that things that are really bad aren't happening. With the manufacturing plant explosion, a library fire, maybe word of the massacre has got out by now. These things are unusual all to happen together, and maybe they're seeking reassurances. Are any of you making an effort to engage any of the individuals who've come out of that room?
Quick question. How is my conversation with my Ventru going?
Why don't you give me a manipulation plus lore roll?
Okay.
Not many of them. Difficulty? No. Ooh. This venture wants to make money. I think it'll be difficulty 8.
Okay, well, that still cancels out that. 2 successes. Yeah, 2 successes.
He says he'll think about it and he'll give you. He'll set an appointment for you to talk about it later in the week.
Okay.
Great.
Can I at least?
That's as successful as you usually are, So.
Okay. I'll take that.
He says the bailiffs won't be round until you've had your talk, and basically he's saying we'll talk and see what you can offer.
I'll take that. In that case, I was going to go to Joan and ask how close are you to your Primogen?
That depends on the reason you're asking.
Well, our guy wasn't presumably Tremere going off Eamon. So maybe she might be a safe one to ask.
I think safe enough for that question, yeah. But I think Joan, especially I think probably knowing that expecting this would happen, and also sort of seeing people starting to flock towards them, I think Joan would maybe hold back from doing that, hoping it'd be nice to be sought out rather than to go seeking. But we'll see what happens.
Sure. Fen and Natalia, are you kind of making any move towards Ludlow or anyone else?
It depends. I'm assuming that Ludlow is kind of being mobbed at the moment.
Sort of, but you obviously he's asked you to come see him, so perhaps.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, depending on what the rest of the group do, I'm just going to like stand close-ish, and then as soon as
It's
there's
close
like
up enough to be noted.
lull, then if he doesn't recognize that I'm there, then I'll like clear my throat. But yeah, I'll just wait to be noticed.
Sure.
Yeah.
How about you, Fen?
I think what I'm going to try and do is like analyze the trajectories of every single person walking through the room and be like, what is the optimal angle that I can go at such that I will arrive smoothly and be charismatic and not interrupt, but not look like I was desperate.
Sure. But who?
To Ludlow.
To Ludlow. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do then, folks. You're both trying to angle and talk to different people. So I'm going to roll myself a d6 and see which one of you is successful first. How about that? Fen, you start kind of like making your way through the crowd and kind of, casual, but fly casual, but don't look like you're flying casual. Closer to Ludlow. And as you're kind of almost kind of at him, where he's kind of like talking calmly to one of the other kindred of the city, he kind of glances around and looks over and sees Natalia stood there and sort of gives like one moment sort of gesture and turns and kind of ends his conversation. And then walks over directly, kind of past you, not intentionally. Yeah. He's not ignoring you. He just can't see you in the crowd, and kind of walks over towards Natalia.
You just sort of see in slow motion Fen's heart kind of break a little bit, but then like he adjusts the trajectory to try and catch up to Natalia.
Absolutely. Shall I tell you at least what? And it's a little storyteller, what's the word? Picky of me. But at least one reason why he wasn't seeing you terribly clearly?
Why?
You didn't say you were stopping using your obfuscate.
That's a good point.
And I would assume I'm gonna take that and interpret it as your social discomfort, meaning you forgot to stop being invisible.
Yep. And then I notice, and my heart reforms again.
Yeah, enough heartbreak in one night for Fen Koval, I think. So Ludlow strides over, kind of like makes a few pleasantries with the people, and kind of comes up to you, Natalia, and says, "Oh, Miss Wolf, it's very, very good to see you. There's a private chamber over there. If you and Mr. Koval, the others, are they?"
Yeah, they're around, and I'll just try and like catch Joan and Cole's eyes.
Yeah, I think Joan is like looking out exactly for this, waiting to be like summoned by the prince. She's
sure.
Yeah, so I'm just going to like nod you over to the room that he's pointing towards.
The prince kind of like just raises a hand in greeting to you and walks over to a room, and presumably you guys follow him in there.
Yeah.
He closes the door behind you. It's basically, it seems to be like a meeting room. Perhaps the investors or the shareholders of the museum use it, or perhaps it's simply here so vampires can use it during Elysium. But either way, he kind of gestures to what looks like a kind of conference table, and kind of as is everyone taking a seat?
Yes, but is this the room that they came out of?
No.
No.
Did we walk past the entrance to that room on our way over to this room?
You did, yes.
If the door is open, could I peek in to see if Loveland is sitting there on his own looking sad?
You absolutely can, because the guards have moved on from that room. The room looked very similar to this one, and no, Loveland was not in the room.
Okay.
But Ludlow kind of like, settles down at the head of the conference table in quite a casual sort of way, kind of swings the chair out to one side so he can cross his legs slightly and place his hands on his knees, and says, "So, I'm sure you have made considerable progress tonight. What do you have to share?"
We're making good progress with the investigation. We have an address that the individual has contacted multiple times. We'll be heading there after this. And we know that they've been on the run for a while. We don't know who from.
I see. Is there anything else?
I like briefly glance over at like the other like Joan and Cole. Like, should we?
I think I'll say the contact Sheriff Diamond put us in touch with recommended lethal force against this individual. Obviously, you are our real authority. Is that your preference?
Oh, well, I appreciate the sentiment, but there are a group of very conscientious individuals who share power in the fine city of Cincinnati, and I am simply one of many I like to think of who takes up the mantle when called. Yes. If that is what must be done, that is what must be done. I take no pleasure in calling on the tradition of a blood hunt, but this individual has broken the Masquerade, and if they've committed other atrocities against our society before, then the time for forgiveness may indeed be over.
I have to confess, I remain curious about the strange circumstances that seem to lead this individual to his outburst.
Yes, I have seen this security footage myself. Most mysterious, and perhaps finding him will turn up some kind of illumination as to this. But we must enact safety first. The Masquerade must be protected at all costs. If it must be done, it must be done.
Of course.
Can I have some kind of a role to try and detect whether the prince was lying when he was talking about if the target had committed atrocities against other kindred? Because the detective may have told him, but we didn't tell him that he was wanted in other cities for crimes against kindred.
You didn't. No. It would be unusual that you think it would be unusual given the relationship you saw early in the story if Sheriff Diamond had not shared this information with Prince Ludlow.
Okay.
But you absolutely, you can absolutely make that role. I just want, when I said that, it was not intended as a potential gotcha moment. You know what I mean? So I just want to establish, you think it's very likely that anything Vincent knows, Diamond knows, and anything Diamond knows, Ludlow knows.
Okay. Yeah. In that case, yeah.
I was going to ask something similar, but less about like that specific, more about like trying to get more of a general read on like that relationship with the sheriff. Like, does this, like, basically what Joan was trying to get at was, you know, would Ludlow have a different opinion potentially to the sheriff on how to handle something like this, or does he have an implicit trust with the sheriff and anyone who may work for the sheriff? You know, does it seem a bit like, you know, I guess, you know, is it a bit of a he's a figurehead and actually the sheriff is the one making the calls here kind of vibe?
I think,
you know?
I think, and I hate to lowball you like this, but I think that you haven't spent enough time to be able to make serious analysis of that between them. But I guess I'd reiterate things they've done and said in the past. Ludlow has been very effusive in his praise of Diamond, and Diamond immediately, basically as soon as anything happened at the gas station, was like, I have to talk to the prince. And then he came back from talking to the prince with new orders. So you feel like, from how you can tell, their relationship is kind of as it seems on the surface, from what you haven't had any reason to think otherwise, if you see what I mean, given your understanding of kindred social relations.
Sure.
Yep.
But Cole, do you still want to make that roll?
Yeah, go for it.
Yes. Yeah, let's try it.
Give me a wits plus empathy roll, please. And I am making a competing roll. That doesn't mean that he is hiding something. It means that I'm determining whether Cole can tell either way via kind of the prince's ability to
just say one thing and mean another.
Yeah. Okay, how did you do?
I got 1 success.
Okay, the prince got more than 1 success.
Yes.
So you can't really read whether he might be, meaning something other than what he's thinking, something other than what he's saying on that, or anything like that.
Okay.
Sorry, does anyone else have any questions or things they want to throw in at this moment before he carries on speaking?
Nope.
I am fascinated that you have managed to find an address, though. This is very quick work indeed. May I know what it is?
Of course.
You presumably say this address in Oakley that you have...
It's in Oakley, yeah. It's this one.
Oakley. This street. You're sure?
We haven't followed it up yet, of course, but this
That's our
is
next.
our next stop.
Well, this is perplexing and vexing. Mr. Cole, you may be better suited than the rest of us in this room to determine why this might be, but he kind of holds up the address between his fingers and says, this is a relatively well-known among the movers and shakers of the Queen City as one of the havens of your primogen. Mr. Loveland, who did not attend tonight's event.
Did he send why he couldn't attend?
No. May I make another request of all of you? Please leave this place. Go to Oakley and inquire with Loveland what is happening. I think we will wrap up the session there. If anyone wants to know and if anyone is curious, in that final request from Prince Ludlow, he was definitely employing the discipline of presence to make his request difficult to refuse. So there we go. If you've got any comments or questions, whether it's about the story, the channel in general, World of Darkness lore, what's happening here, if you're not familiar with Vampire the Masquerade too much, many of the words and phrases and noises coming out of my mouth may be somewhat obtuse to you, but please feel free to ask those questions. In the meantime, promo, there's links below to our YouTube, to our Twitch. You're watching on one, please check out the other, to our social media, our Discord, our Patreon. You're familiar with what all those things do, I'm sure. Visit them if you are interested. We run 3 series weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, each of them starting at 8 o'clock p.m. GMT. Mondays is Shadows of Esteren, Wednesdays is Symbaroum, and Thursdays is this, the Cincinnati Chronicles, our World of Darkness anthology series. We also run a one-shot on the first Saturday of every month. We've had lots of lovely ones this year. Please check them out on YouTube, where they're sitting as video on demand. We held a poll last week on which one of those one-shots people wanted a sequel to for December, and the winner was the first one-shot we ever ran, which was for the Alien system from Free League, which is, of course, based on the Alien movies, the Alien IP. We ran a story called A Place of Burning, and we're going to do Place of Burning 2, which is my imaginative working title. That'll be the same players, the same cast. If you want to catch that, it should be on Sunday, the 5th of December. Yeah, that's it. I think that's my promo. That's all my promo done. Wow, amazing. John, have we got any comments and questions?
We do. Starting from the beginning, let's go. Where are we? Oh, I had it. I lost it. There we go.
Sauerkraut Kid, hello. I appreciate Matt's Bengals shirt. Well, thank you. I've been trying to wear a bit of Bengals clothing for every one of these Like, they are legit. I haven't randomly bought Bengals clothes because I randomly decided to do Cincinnati Chronicles. That would be the work of a madman. No, I am a Bengals fan for my horrible, horrible sins. But thank you.
That's clearly not the sign of a madman.
Well, yeah. Why anyone would support the Cincinnati Bengals who wasn't born in Cincinnati is beyond everyone I've ever talked to who's found out I support the Cincinnati Bengals.
Maybe you were born in Cincinnati, Matt.
Secretly, yeah.
Secret.
Hey, if people want the story of why I support the Bengals, I'll save it up for the last episode of Cincinnati Chronicles. It's very boring. Wendelius, this is a very polite and restrained punching, certainly from Fen. Not so much from Mox, I think, but
no.
There we go.
Probably should have not held back at all against the person who's
grabbed
just
Eamon's gun
torn his head
off Joan. Malice, can you become a dead undead in Vampire the Masquerade? Yes. Vampires can be killed any number of ways. Exposure to fire or sunlight in any significant sense does for them, as just does a load of damage being done to their physical form. If you cut off a vampire's head, they're going to die. If you throw them in a compactor, they're going to die. If they take just one too many serious gunshots, they will die. Their physical form just can't take that kind of punishment and damage. So yes, staking though does not kill them. It puts them in a state called torpor, which is like a forced sleep. Yeah,
I think I remember reading in v20 that staking it doesn't torpor them; it just paralyzes them, but they are still awake and conscious the entire time.
There is something a bit different than that, but torpor in v20, which is what we're playing, is definitely always a death-like trance, essentially. Yeah. Vanillius, I think it would be nice to have a dice roller on stream for the games with rolls. It would be cool to see skill rolls and gasp in horror with the player, or see the stress dice being rolled in Alien would be neat. So this is the thing we discussed when we were starting doing the channel stuff, and the general perception among the crew, not universally, is that there's a bit of a distaste for dice rollers. And since I am in that camp, I will happily take responsibility and explain. I feel like an awful lot of roleplay streams out there have very much the same aesthetic of all little cams in frames scattered around with a logo and a dice roller and maybe an action feed and stuff like that. I cordially and friendly, and it's just my opinion, loathe that presentation. Lots of people love it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying I dislike it greatly. Okay, I'm not slamming you if that's your thing, especially not Cornelius, who's wonderful, or anything like that. But I just it's like nails on the chalkboard to me. And quite a few other people in the crew feel the same way. And I don't think there was anyone in the crew who was like, "Oh, we need to do a dice really, really for it." Although I suspect Pierre was a bit for it, because generally speaking, Pierre is for anything I'm not for.
I'm anti.
So he's like my Mox, so there was that kind of thing. That's not to say we won't do it, because hey, fuck me, if people want it, and I'm the one holding it back or whatever, we can do something like that. But generally speaking, one of our aesthetic choices is very simple, the very simple slick StreamYard presentation of you get our faces and maybe some initiative pop-ups and some images and stuff like that. But hey, what do other people think? Join our Discord and tell us to get a dice roller on screen. Maybe there's something we can do about it. Maybe there's a slicker way we can do it. I know we've been experimenting with OBS windows in StreamYard, and now we have them. That's a lot more appealing to me. If we have Tabletop Simulator running as another cam sort of thing, and everyone can roll on that, I'm much more up for that than a kind of the typical present. I don't need. Everyone's seen them. I don't need to.
If there was a dice roller on screen, then I wouldn't be able to fake all of my dice rolls.
All your dice rolls that you've done. Yeah, right.
A moderate amount of successes that approximate random.
We did used to get some weird comments from people. When we started, I remember getting a couple of people saying if they don't roll dice on cam, how do we know they're not making it up? And I was like, come on. Why would you play games with people if you
Why
think they're
would
going
I
to lie
fail
about
so
their
much
dice
if I
rolls?
was lying?
I'm not
Like-
gonna lie, a large part of my love for TTRPGs is getting to roll physical dice. So
I
like,
was about to say that. Yeah,
is
yeah.
nowhere near the same. And like I make my own dice as well, so I love rolling real dice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I'm the
like
same.
a decent compromise might just be that we like maybe people can get like dice. You know, you can get like little dice. I've got no, it's not there, but like little dice roller like mats or little tables or whatever. Like like John's got there. That's the things from the Flood one, I think, from another one for Free League. Yeah, they're wonderful. And maybe we could do a thing where you roll, because we don't roll dice all that often, right? So maybe it's not a chore. Yeah, exactly. To kind of like hold it up to the cam and shake and roll, as long as we put mute on first. Otherwise, it's going to be a barrage of noise. So maybe we could do that. Would that work for people? Could you see it on the cams? I don't know. Let us know. Let us know what people think. But yeah, and just to reiterate, I am not cursing you as individuals if you like the dice roller common like actual play presentation. I just personally can't deal with it.
Matt, you need to own your hot takes. Own them.
Absolutely. So yeah. Anything else, John?
Yeah. A comment about the frog boys.
Look, Mars got that into my tongue. Yeah, it wasn't a consideration, but literally as I was describing them, I was like, oh yeah, going a bit Lovecraft with this one. Yeah, Koval Mind Palace montage. Was that just like the heartbreaking in and out, or
That was I'm going to visualize the trajectories of everyone in the room. You should imagine like a Sherlock noise, and like the
in my head it's like that. It's the Sherlock presentation, like all the stuff whizzing around, and then he comes out of it and looks about 10 feet ahead, where the other three of the coterie are just talking to Ludlow, like, you know, just chatting away.
I guess I'll just walk over there then.
Himbo energy. Energy.
He does, that strong himbo energy. Anything else? A thing still on track for a finale next week from Steve. You know what? They are. Ooh, we did it. Yeah. We've only got to do it 4 more times. So, yeah. Incidentally, that's a good time to talk about schedule, right? Maybe for people out there. We're looking to take 2 weeks break, like a week before Christmas and a week after Christmas. So essentially, like, what's going to happen is you're going to get 3 weeks of Werewolf and then 2 weeks of holiday and the finale of Werewolf. So we'll have I'll make sure there's a nice cliffhanger on that episode 3, everyone. And then once we're past that, we're on to Mage and Wraith and Changeling. Ooh, yeah. Ooh.
What was that?
I don't know. I have no idea. Anything else, John? Do you think about adding any visual stuff on screen from Shattergat? Yeah. I mean, I guess that would be covered by what I just said, to a certain extent, like with the visual noise of presentation. Like we very much are. I shouldn't speak for all of us, because I'm sure there are people who'd rather we did it other ways. But like the slick look of, there's a background that you can kind of perceive, but mostly it's just faces in StreamYard. And as Steve has said in chat there, like StreamYard itself applies some limitations, but it gives us a lot in terms of like cam control and really slick use of like presenting images and bringing these lovely comments up at the bottom is all StreamYard as well. So we have limitations to what we want to do, but also this kind of simplistic, like not lo-fi, but low, what I want to call it, Spartan, minimalist kind of presentation is also kind of at least what I want to present. So not really.
We do keep thinking, like occasionally we play systems that need like group tokens and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like a sort of map that needs to be up all the time for navigating. We do keep thinking about doing stuff with that, but by the time we think about it, it's usually slightly too late for us to implement it for the thing that we need to implement it for.
But one of these days.
Yeah.
Like we generally, I mean, tokens are useful, but we tend to work on theatre of the mind anyway, so we don't really need many group visual assets for us.
Yeah. Like, I think it is one of those things where, because we are quite different to the majority of like streaming TTRPG presentation. I think there's definitely we may come across like we don't know how to do these things or haven't thought of incorporating them, but and with no ill will, or just as a general response, we definitely are aware of all these things and can implement them. We just don't want to, by and large. What you're seeing is what we want, not what we could put together, if that makes sense. So but maybe that'll change. Maybe that will change. Maybe we'll this time next year we'll have a dice roller. We'll all be backed by pink and blue lights. We'll have some.
If you want us to get mood lighting, then we need more of that Patreon money. Really,
we do. So yeah, if you want to make us look like every other streamer out there, then go support us. No, but yeah, it's this is and also if you were thinking that we'd done this is all just copied from Stream of Blood, as we've said multiple times. I saw Stream of Blood and thought they look great. I really like that, and then we just did that.
It's majestic.
Yeah.
There's a bit more talk about visual stuff in chat, but I think we've pretty much covered that. We've got subscription from.
We do have you did say that earlier, and I will go over. We do have some subscriptions, and we have a follow from. I'm going to choose to pronounce it as Frebro. So thank you for that. We also have a resubscribe from Painful DM. Thank you so much. And we have a fresh subscribe from Sauerkraut Kid. Thank you so much, Sauerkraut. We do really appreciate it. So thank you very much. This stream is getting long in the tooth now, and I suspect my players are wanting to go get their rest. So we'll wrap it up there. But thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks for your chat and your suggestions and your comments. Thanks to my lovely players, and we'll see you next week for the finale in this first Vampire the Masquerade arc of Cincinnati Chronicles. Next Thursday, usual time, usual place. Bye, everyone.
Farewell.